Good evening and welcome to the Talk Right podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Stinnett. And tonight we've got a little kind of a different kind of show. We call it Swerving Out of Your Channel. All the authors that are with us tonight write in multiple genres or collaborations. And so, Nick, why don't you take over and introduce our guests? Everybody unmute your microphones, please.
Okie dokie. Thanks, Wayne. So Swerving Out of the Channel, we are talking to a number of folks here who move outside of your standard genre. A lot of authors will tend to have a series that does really, really well, but they want to do other stuff, just like people who watch television might want to watch a sci-fi movie, but then they might want to watch rom-com. So we've got different authors with different kinds of books. We have John Cunningham, Nicholas Harvey, all the way from the Cayman Islands right now, Stewart Matthews, Mike Jastrzebski, and Douglas Pratt, who I think is in a thriller movie right now. So we're going to talk about a number of things, because once you found your sweet spot and you sort of found something that can make money, it can be a little risky to step outside, but sometimes you want to write something different. So we're gonna talk a little bit about going outside of your comfort zone and doing some different things. So I don't know, Wayne, do you want to start, because you're one of the first ones that had an immensely successful Jesse series, and then thought, you know what, I'm going to do something a little different.
Well, when I started the charity series, it was a thriller series. So I get to write a whole lot more action, whereas in the Jesse series, it's not a whole lot of action. It's just a lot of regular life stuff more than anything. Adventures, a little bit of action. If they ever split up the action adventure genre, the Jesse would be in the adventure side. And but it was fun writing charity, because I can go more into that action, a whole lot more action, more thrills, and she kills a lot more people than Jesse.
Well, let me shift over to Nicholas Harvey, because you're into an area that I've always had a question about this. What is the Nora Summer series called? Its subtitle?
It's suspense, Caribbean suspense.
Right. So, and this is something anybody can jump in. What would you say the difference is between thriller and suspense?
Technically, I believe that suspense, there is actually an official definition, which I'm going to forget now, between mystery, suspense, and thriller. And a lot of it comes from the reader's perspective of what they know. Like in a mystery, it's basically a whodunit. So you are following along with the police person or the person that's searching, and you see their perspective, and you don't get to see who the bad guy is. In thrillers, you get to see very much who the bad guy is, because that's what brings you the elements of the two sides against each other all the time, right? And then suspense is sort of halfway between, where you know a little bit about it, enough to build the suspense and the threat. The protagonist has to be under threat. That's the other part of the definition. Yeah. So my AJ series is adventure mysteries. She's always got something to solve, and they're often dual timelines. And then Nora, I called it suspense because it's edgier. It normally starts with something going on that's going to set up the crime that's happening, so you know a little bit about it, and then she's going to come under threat probably at the points during the story. And then Doug and I are starting a thriller series, which is the Green Wolf series, and the first one is Missing in the Keys, and we've got two new characters to us both that we're writing, and that will definitely be thriller. People will get shot. It'll be more Wayne's charity stuff. We'll have some helicopters, boats, and people jumping places and shooting and blowing up stuff.
Well, Stewart, you have a pure mystery series, I believe. So is it a police procedural?
Yeah, it's pure uncut cop jargon. It's like reading a police blotter, the whole way through. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, man. I mean, it's I think the difference between like pure mystery and thriller. I couldn't tell you the difference between thriller and suspense, by the way. So good on Nick for figuring that out. But yeah, I mean, the difference between I think thriller and mystery is, where's your action happen? In a mystery, usually you're picking up after the action has happened, after the murder, after whatever it is, the robbery. Whereas a thriller, your action is yet to happen, and generally, I think the main character has to figure out a way to avoid that.
No, that's a good way of putting it. I think a lot of mysteries do have thrills in the third act, so to speak, when the mystery begins to be solved and the antagonist takes actions to prevent. So I guess I perhaps it's just semantics, but in terms of sales, semantics have to kind of go out the back window when you have to start to make decisions as to how you're going to categorize your book.
Yeah, well, I think in any book like that, Nick, to your point, the third act often has some kind of external driving force, some kind of like time pressure, or some kind of threat or something that the main character has to deal with. I mean, even like a romance book or a sci-fi book, something like that. I mean, that's kind of what drives the third act forward, I think.
Well, John Cunningham, let me ask you. You have what I would say is pure action adventure with a big dollop of treasure hunting with your main series, but you've done something very different with The Last Raft, and I have a feeling from everything I've heard you say about it that it was quite special for you to write this book. Can you tell us a little bit about Last Raft and why you decided to do this separately from the Buck Rileys?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Nick. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. The Last Raft for me, well, first of all, the Buck Riley series is pure action adventure, as you said. And thank you for recently reading my new one, Purple Deceiver, which just came out a week ago. The Last Raft is actually something I started about 20 years ago. And it's, I refer to it as alternative ending, which if you think of like Quentin Tarantino, Inglourious Bastards, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, things like that, where you have information that is real, but then there has a changed ending, or the characters do different things. That's kind of Last Raft was about, but it was basically a story about 5 people leaving Cuba on a raft, or there had been a Mariel type exodus not long before that. And at the same time, there was a lot of negotiation happening between the fictitious president of the United States and Fidel Castro. So it kind of plays out how the embargo may have ended or could end if somebody was able to finally make that happen. Because unfortunately, we're back to having boats and balseros wash up in the Keys pretty much daily, which stopped for a while after wet foot traffic. But when you live on conditions for such a long time, people do whatever they have to do to risk their lives to get to freedom and opportunity. So to me, having lived in the Keys on and off for a long time, I've seen this happen for so long. It's just something that really, spoke to me as far as telling a story to make people think about it. And unfortunately, most people don't even know why we have an embargo or what the issues are. So it also kind of gives you the opportunity to provide some history and information in a dramatic setting, which is what I like to do with my Buck Riley series also, to both teach the reader something, but learn about it in a kind of an adventurous setting. So yeah, that's what that was about. But I do have another project I'm getting ready to get started. I'm on my 11th Buck Riley book right now, but I'm also I'm dabbling with a horror concept, which would be kind of fun.
Very cool. I'm going to ask Mystery Man Doug Pratt a question here in just a second. But first, while I make sure he's getting to a good cell phone spot, let me ask Mike Jastrzebski, you have the Wes Darling series, which when we invited you to join Tropical Authors, we looked at that and we were like, that is right in our wheelhouse. That is action adventure is set down in beautiful climates. And then like after we asked you to join, the very next thing I was like, wait, is that a vampire? Or I couldn't tell. I think it was a witch. But you have some very different books. But from what I understand, they're actually tied to your Wes Darling action adventures. What can you tell us about those other books?
Well, you're talking about my Artie Kowalski series, and they're horror, but they're humorous. And in fact, the first book in this series started out with, and that's Drop Dead Gorgeous. I had watched, my wife and I were sitting on the boat watching an old rerun of, oh boy, the names of these stories. Anyway, it was of a ghost and all that stuff in there. And I just out of the top of my head said, you know, it'd be really interesting if a private detective had his wife and his mother-in-law, who he didn't care for, come back as ghosts and tell him that they had been murdered because he thought they were killed in an accident. And that's sort of what took that one off. And I liked the Artie Kowalski enough to go on with the next one, which was Witch Haven. And in that one, Artie finds out that his girlfriend's a witch. So it's an expanding possible series. The one I'm working on right now includes witches, genies. It's just werewolves. It's just, you know, a little bit more odds and ends, trying to put in a little more humor. I have plans to write another Wes Darling book, but I get bored writing sometimes. I like to write, but I have to do something different. In fact, my first books before the Wes Darling books, one of them was a historical thriller set in 1935, starts in New York City, ends in Key West. So ends at the 1935 hurricane in Key West. So I've had a variety of books that I write. When something strikes my fancy, I write it. I've been retired. Yeah, I've been on Social Security since 2010, I think. And it's, you know, I want to make money at it, but I want to have fun doing it.
That's
Well,
what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Well, Doug, you are spinning off. I mean, you have a very successful.
First off, Doug, where are you?
Yeah. Tell our viewers.
Right now, I'm driving through Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just outside Nashville, heading east toward Knoxville right now. So
You're driving?
I'm not driving. No, I'm Miss Daisying at the back with somebody else driving at the moment. So
Okay.
I was actually trying to put some words down, and I was like, "This is a good time to write." So nothing like 3 or 4 hours in the car. So.
Well, you should be coming up on Cookville and then Crossville.
Yes, we will. Maybe we might stop at Buc-ee's. Who knows?
That's true. I don't know if people realize this, but a lot of the tropical authors are from Tennessee. Probably because we're so landlocked, we just really want to think about people on boats.
Want to get away?
Yes. But can you tell us a bit about this Missing in the Keys thriller? I know you hung out with Brittnick, and then about 3 days later, we hear there's going to be some books from the two of you.
Yes, it didn't take much. We put together our heads for a little bit, and probably a few cocktails helped along the way. Yeah, it's gonna be a great. It's really fun. I'm so excited to jump into it. I'm trying to speed through the book I'm writing now so I can jump on it. But it's gonna be a lot of adventure. It's gonna be a little bit different, kind of a buddy or buddy cop thing with a little, a nice pair with a Charlotte Green and Grant Wolfe, who will be kind of like at odds with each other at times. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to write. I'm really I'm stoked about it a lot. So
I can tell you, Doug wrote the opening scene, which is set back in time a little bit. It's edgy, you see. It's so cool. It's so cool. And the way it sets up the beginning of the story, and then we jump in and start introducing the characters. So it's fun. We've got I think we've got 4 chapters written. When we kind of went back and forth and were talking about it, I spent some time there as we drove across country in our RV before we came down here to Grand Cayman. We stopped in Memphis, and Doug and I sat next to each other working at his little spot he has that he works at most days. And we were working on our own stuff, but then working on the stuff between us too. It was brilliant because you just lean over and like, hey, what about this? What do you think of that? And so we knocked out the beginning of it really quickly and got a kind of structure of the whole thing. I'm the same way. I'm writing my new AJ book when I can't wait to. I'm loving writing this, but I can't wait to work on the other one.
Yeah.
I was just checking the YouTube feed. I see we got some people in Vero Beach watching, and Bill Black. Hey to you. If anybody has any questions, please throw them up. I don't see any questions yet. Wayne, do you have any questions for our guests?
Well, we haven't hit Stewart yet. Stewart writes mystery and thrillers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're very similar, but
Yeah.
slightly different in like Nick was saying that different elements to the stories.
Yeah. I mean, we did talk about it a little bit.
Oh, did we? I had a brain fart then.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
Well, this was a nice segue into collaborations then. And Stewart and I collaborate, and just everybody here. I don't know, Mike, do you have any collaborations?
No, I don't. I haven't collaborated with anybody.
Well, you're the redheaded stepchild in the room. Well, no, you're not.
Well,
wait, Brent,
part of the problem is until a couple of years ago, my wife and I lived on our sailboat. We started in Minnesota and traveled around and lived there for 16 years. So we were never in the same place for long.
Well, it's something to keep in mind. Margaret Lashley, who's not here tonight, she, in addition to her tropical books, she also has her Freaky Florida series. And I've got zombie Bigfoot hiding in the corners there. And I'm actually working on a book called The Duppy to take place in the Caribbean. So when I narrated Wayne and Stewart's latest book, I'm like, oh, they got a Duppy in here. Oops. So fortunately, I have found other names for these things. But anyway, there might be some space down the line for a Tropical Authors collab book that goes into some of the spooky West Indian stuff, and we could have something
really cool.
Yeah, just something a little different, and maybe we'll have it come out in Halloween.
Yeah, there's so much to mine there, man. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun looking into that stuff, and yeah.
There's a mythical creature on Andros Island. I can't remember what it's called now. Anybody remember? You know that?
I've been there. I don't know.
It inhabits the areas around the blue holes, the inland blue holes. And,
is it the Chickacharney?
Chickacharney, yeah, that's
okay.
it.
Yeah.
That would be a cool.
Or the Luska.
I've never heard
sea
that
monster
one.
is said to exist in the region of the blue holes near Andros. Yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe we need a whole horror series set in the Caribbean. Although I have to say, one of my big fans and this is something I'm going to ask folks about. You have fans that absolutely love your main series, and one of my favorite zombie Bigfoot 1-star reviews is someone going, Nick should keep writing the Deep series. This isn't that at all. 1 star, which is good for the Deep series, but what do you do when you do something that is not what the bulk of your fans? Okay, I'm going to jump into a different question from where it seemed like I was going. Do you have different newsletters if you have extremely different books?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Okay. No.
Yes.
So Doug, what do you say? Yes. Do you have a different series?
I
You
do.
have two.
Well, I have a different. I do have a sci-fi series that has a different pen name. So I do have
That
a
was my
separate
next question.
newsletter.
Okay.
Don't. It's not quite as active as my Douglas Pratt one because I'm not a very good sci-fi writer. But I do have probably about 1,000 subscribers on there, so I do send out something to them occasionally.
I've always wanted to write a sci-fi kind of thriller kind of book because you can do anything.
Yes.
I mean, you need to wipe out a whole city, no problem. Just make up a weapon that does that.
There are no limits in sci-fi. Yes, that's the fun part.
There
It
are
was
no
a lot of
limits.
fun to write. So
There are no limits, but there was a time when there were so many different things going on. You got to be pretty careful with sci-fi that you don't mix up what's been given by other writers and just by our knowledge now.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's also the no limit thing is a bit of a double-edged sword. There's a bit of choice paralysis that can go along with that. Being restricted to certain, I guess, genre conventions or settings or that kind of thing. I think can almost help one become like more creative.
Does anyone else here use another pen name for different books? Because Doug has just said that he's done something that I kind of think maybe I should have. I did. What's that Amazon imprint that sometimes brings people on as a publisher?
Thomas and Mercer.
Mercer, yeah, the Thomas and Mercer person told me they thought I should use the same name. But now after the fact, I'm like, but my also bots are very confused.
Yeah, I bet.
So I'm not so sure.
I'll add that while yes, it does confuse my also bots, but I don't give my lesser pen name a lot of attention because it doesn't make me as much money, and it might if I spent more time on it. So it'd be easier if I only had one pen on one name all the way across. So you take that for what it's worth as well.
Yeah, when I did the last draft, I think all of the negative reviews were like, wait a minute, this isn't Buck Riley. And no matter how many, times I posted what it was about or advertised what it was about, that it was totally different, not part of the Buck Riley series, people just see something in your name and it comes out and they buy it because they're loyal to appreciate. But when it's something they're not expecting, it kind of
You're
messes
always
them up.
going to be tied to Buck, and I'm always going to be tied to Jesse. And
Right.
there's no way you can dodge that unless you create a pen name.
I was gonna say that was one thing when we did Wayward Sons, Wayne. I remember the first few reviews on that were like, this is not Jesse McDermott. Why isn't Wayne writing his name? It's like they're so close together. It's crazy. So really, it's a kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I
that
guess
was a lot of fun writing that. Both of them. Voodoo Child's coming out next week, and that was a lot of fun writing that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Matt wrote the bulk of it, and we needed a ghost. So I said, "Hey, I got that," and I created a 13th century ghost, and he comes back to haunt basically the whole island.
Sounds cool.
But yeah, on collaborations, let's talk for a minute about how you collaborate. John, Nick, and Nick, we've all done 2 books together, and Stewart and I have done 2 books together, and it can create a lot of challenges. But the way we did the Graceless and Timeless, that was so much easier than actually working and writing together. What we did by one person writing the first quarter of the book and the second person writing the next quarter, it just made it flow real seamless. And then all we had to do is just stitch them together. But when when Stewart and I were writing, we had separate chapters that each of us wrote, but we also rewrote each other's. And that made the writing a lot more seamless. And it seemed like it was neither neither Stewart writing it nor Wayne writing it, but somewhere in between. And so what other methods of collaboration do we want to
with Priceless that I'm working on right now with Don Rich and Deborah Brown? We're doing it a little bit differently. So with Graceless and Timeless, we took a independent protagonist and ran them through our worlds to meet our folks. And with Priceless, we decided to take, as Deborah writes, they're kind of she's hugely popular. She's got a series that's going ballistic at the moment, doing really, really well. And they're romance, they're kind of set in tropical environments in Miami, but they're kind of a group of female friends who get themselves into trouble and investigate things and solve things. But they have a little bit of a romance edge to it. So it's like, okay, how are we going to blend these ladies into kind of what we do with our action adventure suspense kind of things? And we decided to make her character the sort of protagonist that rolls through the story. So it starts in Cayman, where my characters are based, and her character is down there for an event. Actually, two of her characters are down there for an event, and she gets kidnapped. And so she gets to interplay, and we're actually writing back and forth. So I wrote the opening chapter from my character's perspective, and then she wrote it from her character's perspective, which was kind of on the other side of the coin, being kidnapped, opposed to my guys saw something goofy going on. And then we're going back and forth. And then they're going to, without giving the plot away, they're going to end up somewhere else. And then Don and Deb are going to go back and forth. And essentially we're writing, Don and I just write a little bit longer in our segments. Deb writes a little shorter in her segments. So we end up sharing the word count load. Will end up about the same all the way through. But it's kind of fun going back and forth like that.
Yeah, that's definitely different.
Yeah, they're Missing in the Keys is going to be somewhat that way. We weren't quite sure how to do it. So, but I think we've sort of bumbled into a way of doing it where we go back and forth between Green and Wolf from their perspective. So it's third person from both of their point of view. But it's written from one chapter will be from one's perspective and the next one from the other, which I think will work pretty good.
Do you have the story figured fully ahead of time so you can go back and forth, or are you just kind of riffing like we did on Timeless and Graceless?
Hell no, we're just winging it.
That's the fun. That's the funnest part about a collaboration. It's for somebody like Stewart, you are a heavy plotter, and yep. to do one of these less is more, you have to get away from that because you don't have a plot. All you have is what's given to you. You have to read it and then add to it.
Except what I would like to do, because there are a lot of us who are plotters. One of these less is more. What I want to do is get the writers all together to do the plotting together. And then once we've got that and sort of figure out what's going to happen, I would love to then subdivide it and let the chapters play out in kind of a pants manner. But I would love to have one of these books where each chapter is the POV of one of our characters. And it might be that one of our writers, for instance, with Britnick, Nora and AJ are very distinct characters and see the world very different ways. So you might have an AJ chapter and you might have a Nora chapter. But once you've got the plotting and you know what needs to happen, maybe like these two things need to happen in this chapter, but the rest of it could be open. I'd love to do a book like that. We are going to try what I call like half measured toward that with a book called Faceless coming out, where we are going to do each of our chapters the way we did with Graceless. But then once everyone comes together and are all in the same location, I believe what we're going to try to do is that POV thing I want, but on a lesser level, where we have chapters that are scene broke into POV Boone, POV AJ, POV AJ Stewart's character, And we'll see how that works. Yeah, we're still early days, but that's kind of what's exciting about these collabs is we get to experiment with different techniques.
Super creative too. I mean, it's a shame AJ Stewart's not on here. I think he's on a plane to Australia right now.
Yes, he is.
So a little tough for him to join us, but it's super bloke, and he's a heavy plotter. I think Nick thought
he makes this look
exactly
like nothing.
Yeah.
This is
Nick
would be a whole
plotter.
wall behind me.
Yeah. And so we had a great Zoom chat where we had a bit of a skeleton of a story and an idea. And then he's like, okay, I've got a window of time here. Let me, I won't plot your parts for you, but I've got to lay my stuff out. And the way he works, and I'm speaking for him here because he's not here, but he is so detailed in his plotting. He says that the writing is the short part for him. He spends ages laying it all out, how exactly everything, where his twists are, all those bits and pieces. Then he sits down and writes it, and writing comes really quickly. So he's taken this kind of idea that we chatted about on the Zoom call, and he's really piecing it together. And you can tell from the emails that we're all getting. Chris Niles is the other one that's writing it with us. And you can tell by the emails we keep getting from him, he's plotting his part out in detail, but he keeps throwing things like lobbing things over the fence.
Maybe you
got to add this to your plot. You got to add this
perhaps
to your
you
plot.
might want to do this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
I do that in my own books.
Yeah, right.
As
Yeah.
I'm pantsing, I'll
Yeah.
get to a point and I say, oh, okay, I got to go back here to chapter 4 and make a little tweak here so that it coincides and everything works out.
Yeah, I've got to go back and rewrite the first chapter of what I'm writing right now, because it's because I've made so many changes because I'm going through this 1704 timeline in my AJ book. AJ hasn't even showed up yet. I'm going every other chapter and writing the whole thing. And from where I started, I've done so many things now. I've got to go back and rewrite the first chapter and change it a little bit.
We have some YouTube questions.
Oh, okay, great.
Let's see. Oh, wait. Okay, this is more of a statement. There's a pretty good rum these days called Duppy Share.
Oh,
Love that. So
Write that
Duppy
down,
is a
Jordan.
spirit in the West Indies, and there's a famous bourbon called Angel Share, and then there's a Devil's Share, and there's Duppy Share. So that's Bill Black. Great bottle, slightly above average contents.
I wonder what makes it a Duppy Share. Is there grave dust in there or something? Is that-
But we do have a question.
Thanks for that, Bill.
What is the perfect, this is from B for Bell. What is the perfect length for a novel versus a novella? That's an open question. And how do you know when to end one book and start the next one?
Well, I'll take that last question.
How many people? We got 7 people here. I think we get about 7 different answers.
Yeah, that
You start the next one when the one before that ends. I mean,
Right.
you come to a conclusion and everybody goes to sleep.
and then you probably
pick up the
take a
next one
couple
and start
months
the next
off and then start again. Well, I take a couple months off.
I
But
don't.
novella,
I take a couple
I
days.
don't take any-
no, I know you guys are like back in. I can't do that. A novel versus novella. This is sort of an open question, but what
There's
do
a
we
rule.
think about that?
There's a rule, right?
It's a word count.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
A short story is up to 15,000 words, and then a novella would be 15 to 50, and then a novel is 50,000 up to 100,000.
Yeah,
Epic novel.
Except
is
if you
over-
give me something at 16,000 words, I'm not going to call that a novella. That still strikes me. That's what I mean. It's a little fungible.
it's vague, yeah.
I think if you're going to have something that you're going to call a novella and not get 1 stars on, it's probably going to be about 30 to 40,000 words, right?
My other two, I think about 25,000 words, 26 for my prequels for both series.
For the prequels, right?
Yeah, and I've never had, and then novellas, and I've never had a comment from anyone
And 25 is good. Okay.
that it's too short or what have you.
I'm
So
going to go ahead and
someone did put a review on Graceless that it was too short. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a really short novel.
Well, it says novella in the
Yeah,
subtitle.
I know.
I'm going to go ahead and put somebody on the spot here who's not even here.
Hmm.
And Britt, Nick and I are going to announce that there is a sixth Less is More book coming up, and it will be Ruthless. And it will be written by me and Britt, Nick, and Cap Daniels. So
Nice.
Cap, if you're watching, you can't back out now, buddy.
It's on the internet forever.
Yeah.
We've been trying to wrangle him into this for a while now. And and he's just a writing machine. He still works a full-time job, and he's still putting out a book every 2 months. And so trying to get him nailed into doing a collaboration, well, we had to put it to where it's, okay, here's what we're going to do, Cap. We're not going to release it until next summer. So we got all this time to do it.
Yeah, I'm lucky to put out a book more than once a year. I'm not a real prolific writer, mostly because I'm lazy, but also I'm getting older.
So you're still on island time.
Sometimes.
I'm a fan. That's my problem. So I read a lot of the books of you guys and other writers, and I'm a fan. And that's I love Cap's Anya series, the Russian series, and and it's set in 2004. So when I first reached out to him, he's like, "Well, how do we do it? You write in current time, and you write in 2004." I said, "Well, I actually write a lot of these things in dual timelines." And so I think he's still a little confused about how the heck we're going to do this, but the problem is Wayne and I were at NINC, and I started telling Wayne about the premise I had for this, the outline for this story that would have Anya and Nora in it. And he had this brilliant idea how to add Charity in there, who happened to be an adult back in 2004 and is still around in current time being written about. So she could be in both time periods. So it's super exciting story. It's going to be pretty cool, I think.
I like the idea. It's just brilliant, and the whole storyline, and jumping from time to time and weaving in actual events in Russia. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So Nick, you got any more YouTube questions?
I think we had one more. If I can find the right window, here it is. Does it help to be friends to collaborate? Seems like, this is from Bill Black. Seems like egos could be bruised during rewrites and editing.
What makes you think we're friends?
Yeah.
These jerks.
We might start as
Actually,
friends,
I think the ego thing is a misconception that a lot of people have. And working with John and Nick was just so easy, and ego never got into it. There was never a time when anybody had to say, okay, we got to do this because I'm the king or whatever. But it worked out so fluid and so seamless, and it just flowed really well. And it does help that we are all friends. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to do it with somebody who had that demanding demeanor of, it's got to be all about me. I've got to dictate everything. I mean, because that was so much of the fun, just brainstorming it with you guys and then running with each of the quarters together. And, and I think to our credit, the reviews are like, wow, it was so seamless. Almost all the reviews of, especially, Timeless most recently, is like, obviously they were we also had it from the point of view of a non, protagonist of any of our series. So we had an independent protagonist that we would all come in and support and have our characters work with. But yeah, I mean, it was so much fun doing it together. If anything, it's anti-ego. You're putting yourself aside and throwing yourself into the story and teaming up with your friends who admire their work, and then, come up with something independent, and have a really good time. I recommend it.
I think that's a big factor too, because all four of us have read each other's books, every one of them. And so it just works out real easy if you know who the character is and how the character is going to react.
I think
We-
there's.
and
Go
we
ahead,
set
Nick.
some we set some basic ground rules, which I think helped. Which is basically, you know, if multiple characters are being integrated in your section, the author whose characters they are can go into your section and change the dialogue a bit to fit it. What I was kind of shocked, especially with Emily, my Emily Duran character, was how close everybody got her like I had to tweak her a little bit, but for the most part, I was like, okay, they know her voice. But you know, basically, as long as your characters are protected, you go to town, and you might make a suggestion. You know, hey, there's this, and sometimes someone might take it, and sometimes they wouldn't. But you know, all you can do is put in a suggestion, and you go for it. And I think I can't believe it turned out. I have to say, early on with Timeless, because it's more integrated, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna turn into a bit of an argument. It didn't. It just came out wonderfully. I can't wait to do another one of these.
Brittnick got Charity on a motorcycle, so.
Actually, that was Sully did that. He had the motorcycle flyby.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we got to set up that motorcycle. Yeah.
I think that there's also a fair amount of respect too, you know, between everyone who's collaborating. And that makes a huge difference, you know, when you respect somebody's work and you can trust that, you know, they're going to do the right thing. You can trust their advice. I mean, that eliminates a lot of the ego straight off. Like, you know, just thinking from my perspective, you know, working with Wayne, you know, I had interacted with Wayne online for, oh God, I don't know, this is like 2014 probably when I first, you know, got started, and Wayne, you know, mentored a lot of people. I had a huge amount of respect for Wayne. So, you know, to work with him was just fantastic, man. I couldn't be, you know, more excited.
Oh, shucks.
Another kind of spinoff of doing the full-blown collaborations. I mean, you know, I know a lot of us have had each other's characters appear in their books, kind of cameos or things like that, which is also a lot of fun. And that's even more of a stretch in some ways, because you're essentially having the other author write your character. In the collaborations, we're writing our own characters, and we're including the other authors in some cases. But it's also a lot of fun to have, you know, some of your peers, colleagues, friends, you know, either think enough about your character to want to include them, and then do a good job with it. So
have you read Cast Off yet, John?
Yeah.
I killed Buck at the end.
That's all right.
No, he might have thought he was dead after Charity got through with him. But that was huge fun, because I know Buck Riley so well. I've read all his books, and just incorporating him into the Jesse story along with Charity, and Charity's on one island very close by, and Buck's on another island very close by, and there's been a little bit of chemistry there in the previous book, so in the Timeless, and so
we mean chemistry.
yeah, definitely.
There was more than chemistry.
Chemicals were probably involved.
Exchanged.
I actually, speaking as Wayne Stinnett's narrator, I first experienced these crossovers. I mean, I guess as a reader, I remember thinking Stephen King would frequently do crossovers between his own books. He'd have little references. But Wayne had Mac Travis from Steve Becker's books show up in a book. And then my first experience with John Cunningham was emailing him going, how does Buck Riley talk? Because Buck showed up in one of Wayne's books at one point. And it was fun enough that when I had Deep Shadow come out, my first book in this genre, I decided Stretch Buchanan needed to show up and pluck them out of the water at the very end. I love these crossovers. They're a ton of fun.
And then I turned around and took that same scene and made it from Jesse's point of view in my next book, and with him plucking Emily and Boone out of the water.
And then I went back into Deep Shadow and to put a link in to buy that book that you just said. was like, if you want to see this from Stretch's point of view, buy Rising Water.
And that's
how it
been
works.
one of the best things about this Tropical Authors group is this sharing of not just characters and plots and ideas, but just the camaraderie that we've developed, and very soon we're all going to be together in one place, hopefully next year. And,
You know, Don Rich will blow us up if we all get in one place, right?
well, Don's not invited.
So if anyone doesn't know, Don, when he was writing one of his books recently, asked us all in our little forum we have, hey, does anyone mind getting killed off as a novelist? Because he's going to write about this cruise with novelists on it. And we pretty much all went, yeah, no problem, don't worry about it. So he had so many people say yes, he could kill them. Instead of killing off like 3 or 4 one by one, I'm telling you the plot of his damn book now, but oh well. He ends up putting us all on this tour boat and blowing the whole boat up. The whole tropical author genre in one explosion.
He was looking for a monopoly. I'm not sure. Well, another aspect of collaboration is, and I don't know if Bill Black's still on. I can't see who's on, but he's appeared in, a couple of my books, including the most recent one. And, I know he's appeared in other people's books as well, but having real people involved in the stories, I think, is another kind of fun form of collaboration,
Yeah.
and using them for the experts of what they are or who they are. I mean, I love that blend of fiction and nonfiction. And, so thank you to Bill, if you're still on, for appearing in the last 2 of my books.
Yeah, that's good. I'm in Grand Cayman right now, where mine are based, and I've got a bunch of friends here and dive ops and various things and scenes that are included, like restaurants and locations. So I'm going to see a bunch of those people. And the dock that my character AJ and Reg use is a dock right next to West Bay Dock, and it's run by Indigo divers. And I'm going to go see Chris tomorrow, and because we've chatted online about it. Hey, I borrowed your location, by the way, and things like that. So that's a lot of fun. And our friend, we're having dinner tomorrow night with our friend who works for the DOE now, but they used to run, the Kellers used to run a dive boat, which we dove with all the time, Neptune's Divers. They had a great little dive op. And now she works for the DOE here, the Department of Environment. And so I have her as a character in the books working for the DOE. And she's like my Caymanpedia, I call it, like a Wikipedia. If I want to know anything Cayman, she doesn't know it, she'll find it. So that stuff's fun.
I had in my second book, Fallen Hunter, every character in there is a real person except for Jesse. I got tired of making up names, so I just posted on Facebook, who wants to be in my book? And so a whole bunch of people replied, and so I just split it up into two columns, male and female. And when I came to a new character, I just go to that list and pick the next name on the list. And it was, all of them are gone now except one, Cheryl Kaczynski, and she's been in every single Jesse book and a couple of the charity books. And she's a woman that I went to high school with, and we're still friends today.
Doug, what are you doing now? You've been parked for a while.
I believe my driver went in to get something to eat, so I've been kind of doing a little more light here too. So I have no idea where we are at this point, so I wasn't paying attention. So.
Don't get carjacked.
Live on our podcast, Doug gets carjacked.
That'd be well. I'm not.
We'd all be like taking dibs on having that in a story for us.
Let me see if there are any more questions.
I don't know, but Bill Black just gave me a good resource, someone to get hold of here on Grand Cayman. So thanks, Bill. I'll track down this lady.
Oh, Karen McKee.
Yeah.
I got one for you too.
Dude.
She was in Deep Focus, although I called her Katja. But look for Tanja, Tanja. She's German. Tanja Lasser, Laaser. She is the iguana girl. She's been working to wipe out the green iguanas that have basically been destroying the sister island iguanas populations because of crossbreeding. And she became like the conservationist of the year for Cayman Island Governor's Award. And now she's moved over to Grand Cayman from Little Cayman.
So
She's out there catching iguanas right now on Grand Cayman.
she's hunting for them because they're nowhere. So the one thing Cheryl and I noticed, we were driving in here past the golf course, and it used to be just a bunch of these greens running everywhere. And so far we've seen one, and it was a little one.
Good.
The only one we've seen the whole time we've been here. So yeah, so you have to give me an email or something for it.
Okay, I'll see if I can. Well, my email is her Little Cayman Museum, so I don't know her current email.
Yeah. Is she working for the DOE here?
I think so.
Oh,
I'll
then
see what I
get
can
hold
find
of
out.
If I can get hold of through Casey, then if she's for the DOE.
Okay, cool. Well, we kind of went off. We went off our subject.
No, we didn't, did we?
That never happens on Talk
Yeah.
West.
All right, how about this? Does anyone have it? Well, I've heard a couple people mention things they were thinking about. Mike, you had something you were working on. Does anyone have something way outside of their tropical action adventure comfort zone that they really want to do?
I want to do a sci-fi, like Wayne said.
All right.
I want to do some kind of sci-fi mystery mashup, something like that, you know?
Yeah,
You should
got a
get
one-off
together with Paul Deaver,
course.
Stewart.
I've actually got a first book finished on basically a end of the world thing for adults, and kids sort of take over. I like to explain it as Lord of the Rings meets Lord of the Flies.
Nice.
And I've got the first book done on that. I had it out in the Bella system that came out a while back from Amazon, and I pulled it out of there so that I could put it into a book force. But I want to get one or two more books in that series done before I let it go loose. And I fought back and forth about using a pen name, but I have found that I've got a certain amount of my readers that will read what I write, even if it's not in the genre they like. So I'll probably, plus it just seems like too much extra work to get another, to do all the separation of everything when you start having a pen name.
It is.
I believe it. I've given it a lot of thought, and I've looked into it a lot, but I can't make that commitment to that.
I kind of wish I hadn't at this point. I wish I may just pair them back together at some point, but I hadn't. I would like to do like an urban fantasy myself, but I'd actually like to do it like a graphic novel.
Ah,
Oh, cool.
are you an artist?
No, I'm not. They make people fun. My daughter is, but I'm not. But she's not going to be doing that. And I am actually working on a kid's book as well with her, so we'll be kind of doing a little bit off genre, but it does involve a mermaid, so there's some tropical stuff there.
All right, checking YouTube. Oh, I have too many windows open.
Yeah, I think it derailed onto giving me contacts in Grand Cayman mainly.
Oh, yep, treasure hunting. Okay, no more questions there. Anybody have anything coming out? Well, we know about Voodoo Child. That's coming out when?
The 14th, a week from today.
14th. And let's see, John, you just had Purple Deceiver come out
Yeah, that came
last
out on
week, I
28th.
think.
Yep.
Nick, Harvey, what else? You just had a Summer come out last month, but what's
Yeah.
next on your agenda?
Dark Summer came out last month. I'm working on Anchor Point, which is the latest AJ, which will come out in January. And then I have Dark Summer audiobook is with QC at Amazon right now, or Audible right now. So that's due to drop any day. And then Kim is working on Valley of the Rays, which is book 6 or 7 in the AJ series as we work through and try and get caught up with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, you said you
for
have
all of you.
What's that?
I've got a question for everybody. How do y'all find time to read?
At night
I
before I
don't.
fall asleep. That's it.
Pretty much.
About
Basically,
30
the
minutes
Sleep,
in
yeah.
bed.
basically the only chance I get to read is when I'm sitting on the can.
So I mean, that's a good 2 hours a day, right?
Yeah, well, when you get to be my age, at least.
I used to read a lot. I do any reading now in the evenings when I have a chance, but I'm a late night person. So when my wife goes to bed, I either watch TV or read. But I found that as far as reading goes, when I'm writing a paranormal book, I can't read paranormal because it just interferes with my thoughts.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing with when I'm writing one of my blues books, my West Darling books. I can't read anything set like that because I just, it sort of moves my mind out of what I'm concentrating on.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
I've got one more question for you, Mike.
Yeah,
What kind of boat did you have?
I had a 36-foot Islander. It was an older boat. We bought it when we were up in Minnesota. Sailed it for a few years on Lake Superior, and then we took it put it in the yard and did a lot of work on it. Then we sailed from Lake City, Minnesota, down the Mississippi, the Ohio, Tennessee, Tom Bigby, down to Mobile, and then we were hit with Katrina, and I had to do some more work on it. And then we sailed around Florida, the Bahamas a couple times, up to the Chesapeake. So it was a good boat, but it had an atomic 4 engine. So it sort of kept us from going in any real long distance trips to the Virgins or anything like that.
I just sold my boat. I had a 41-foot Beneteau. I'm
Yeah, well,
getting rid of everything.
you just bought that a couple years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 years ago, and it was a mistake. My eyesight isn't good enough for me to sail anymore. Same reason I got rid of my motorcycles the other day, and I'm just giving away everything.
Well, we got out of the boat 3 years ago when about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I forget what hurricane it was, came through and did more damage on the boat. We were in a marina. You couldn't do a lot of work on it. We were doing that, but I was finding that I was getting older. My balance isn't as good as it used to be, and so we just decided to get off. We're living in Dothan, Alabama, just above the Florida border. Miss Florida, miss being on the boat, but I don't miss the work.
That's is very true. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour. Nick, do you have any more questions from YouTube?
I will check. Let's see.
There was one-
Doug, before I forget, Doug, when is your next book?
I've
What's
got
your next?
one. Gator Alley is coming out November 30th of this, so it's almost coming up on us real quick. So
That is
Gator
definitely
Alley.
coming out.
yeah, be
Let's
nice if I
see.
finish.
So Wayne, since you're paring down a little bit of your things, have you picked out your squat rack yet, buddy?
Have I picked up my what?
Squat rack. You're gonna get a squat rack, right?
No, my I've hired a powerlifting coach, and he's putting together a list of equipment that I need to buy, and construction is starting in the next couple of weeks in my home gym out in the shop.
Yeah.
Motorcycles are gone, everything's out of the shop, so
He's
I'm
gonna tell you to
have
buy a
a
power cage, and you should.
280 square foot gym.
Yeah, buddy. That's how you do it.
But if there's no more questions, you got any more questions, Nick?
No, I was just the rum ran out, so this seems to time
Oh.
out perfectly.
Well,
Yeah.
if the rum's gone, then I guess the show's over. I want to thank all you guys for being on here. It's been a lot of fun. Great conversation. And I want to take the time to thank our sponsors and supporters, Down Island Publishing, Aurora Publicity, How Not to Sail, Let's see who else. Who am I forgetting?
Did we do pirate radio?
Pirate radio. Speaking of which, Nick, Bradford Rogers, who runs How Not to Sail, has asked me to be on his show. And then JP Pierce, who is one of the DJs on Pirate Radio, also does a podcast called Dadcast. And he's asked me to be on his show also. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we just had both of those guys on our show and on their shows at the same time?
Just tell me what day it is and maybe that'll work.
But anyway, thank you guys for being on here, and thanks to all our sponsors and supporters. And next month is what is it? Hot Tropics. So we'll see you all again next month.
Yeah.
We'll
Thanks
do
for having
this
us.
again.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Good night,
Good night, everybody.
See you guys.
Night, everybody.